Welcome to the Clear to Send podcast, a podcast about wireless engineering, where we educate you on Wi-Fi technology, talk about design tips, troubleshooting, interviews, and the tools. Here are your hosts, Roel and Francois.
Hello, welcome to a brand new episode of the Clear to Send podcast. In this episode, we're going to talk about some handheld Wi-Fi tools with NetAlly, because I've been playing around with NetAlly for a few months now and just wanted to talk about it. But before we get to that, we have our co-host here, Francois. How are you doing, Francois?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Feeling pretty rested. Trying to, I guess, still in recovery mode for, not even recovery yet, of the election. We still haven't known yet.
Yeah.
So,
we still don't know.
So I'm just trying to preoccupy myself with writing some blog posts and actually looking at the NetAlly product.
Yeah, I saw the blog you published yesterday. It was pretty good.
Oh, thanks.
It's
yeah.
Nice.
So this kind of led to this episode where we will talk about me specifically about the Etherscope Nxg. It's a handheld tool from NetAlly. And if you guys don't know NetAlly, they've kind of changed names and they've been around the block, but they've been around for a while, and they have different handheld tools that not just test Wi-Fi, but also test against wired as well. So it's kind of a all-in-one kind of tool, right?
Yeah, they used to be NetScout before NetAlly, and they used to be different. They used to have different names before that.
Yeah, and different colors.
Like part of Fluke, I think. They were part of Fluke.
Yeah, they were part of Fluke for a while. So now they're on their own as NetAlly, which I think gives them a lot more freedom and flexibility to work on the products they really work on, which is AirCheck G2 and the Etherscope. I mean, they have some other products as well. They have Link Live. If you have their handheld tools, you should have access to Link Live. So we kind of want to touch upon all of those, right? And kind of give our experience and I guess a breakdown of what we think about the handheld tool. Because NetAlly did give me this Etherscope Nxg to try out and really play around with it, test out some features. And I didn't want to talk about it or really give any feedback on it until I really used it quite a bit, right? I didn't want to use it one time and then say, here's what I thought. So I did bring it with me to a couple of engagements where I was troubleshooting, doing some assessments, and I would try to see if this tool can be a primary tool, right? Rather than bringing a whole lot of different tools in my bag, right? That's kind of the issue we have is in order for us to troubleshoot or assess Wi-Fi, we're carrying a lot of tools, right? I'm sure you're carrying a lot of tools in your bag, Francois.
Yeah. Depending on I guess on what I do, I have my go-to tools. And troubleshooting Wi-Fi, everyone does it differently, right?
Yeah.
Some people like to start with like a survey. Some people like to start with just like a Wi-Fi scanning. Some people like to do packet capture right away. So I guess depending on what you're comfortable with, you're going to use different tools, like you said. Yeah.
Yeah, and then so you and I both assess Wi-Fi differently, and I've brought all sorts of tools to try to see what works with my that goes with my workflow. And I find that the NetAlly products, the handheld tools, and I've used both AirCheck G2 and the Etherscope, and they are pretty different, right? I think AirCheck G2 is specific to just wireless testing, whereas the Etherscope is more of a network tester. It has Wi-Fi testing and wired testing, so it has a lot more capabilities. It actually has an SFP port that you can test up to 10 gig connection, so you could do test over fiber and copper, which is really neat. So that actually makes the tool a little bit larger than the AirCheck G2, and it runs on Android, which is, I believe, the same as the AirCheck, right?
AirCheck, I think it doesn't. I think it has its own OS.
Its own OS, okay.
Yeah, I think that's why the NXG is like, brings a lot more, um, options and possibilities, because you can, I'm sure we'll talk about it, but you can install some Android applications on it, and you could use it to, to have even more tools, in front of you to do different things, different tasks. So if you're targeting at giving the NXG to some of your technicians that go on site, you can make sure that they have all the, Android application that they need on the NXG. So you just send them with one tool, like you said, and then they don't need anything else. They won't even need their smartphone or anything like that, right?
Yeah,
If they have
exactly.
everything on the device.
Yeah, that's true, because Android, you do have much more functionality there. And before we started recording, we talked about the different apps you can install, right? Because there is an app store. I guess they are NetAlly approved applications. And if you had a fleet of these devices, it is pretty easy to just install those apps on those your NetAlly devices. So, for example, we were talking about Mist and we wanted to validate. Maybe you had an installer doing the validation for you, and they needed to,
Or even the installation.
yeah, just do the installation of it, and the Etherscope could do all of that, because you can install the Mist app on the Android, on Android. So that capability is there. And while you're using that to claim your access points and switches, you might as well go and test the cable, right? Testing whether the cable works, if you're getting a gig. And then when you're done with that, after you've claimed the APs and you're using templates, and so all that configuration's done, the moment it connects back to the Mist cloud, you can then run your Wi-Fi tests with the Etherscope as well. So it's kind of the all-encompassing tool where you don't have to take out different tools out of your bag. You do it all in one. Granted, you have enough power. The battery lasts that long, because.
And you can also have, I think you have a camera on the Etherscope. So in the Mist app, once you claim and you assign the AP to the proper site, the technician could also take a picture of it and document that within the Mist app. It would send that information back to the Mist cloud, and then it can pretty much do all of that on the Etherscope. And then, like you said, once the AP start broadcasting the SSID, you could use the Etherscope to validate that everything has been configured properly, everything is working properly.
Yeah. And let's say you might be wondering, well, what kind of tests would they do? Well, the cool part, and before we dive into that, what's really neat with the Etherscope is that Francois is over in on the East Coast. I am on the West Coast. But with Link Live, he can actually see what I'm doing on the Etherscope, because there is a remote functionality. So while I'm going through this, he doesn't have the Etherscope with him. He can actually see what I'm doing just because he's remoted in. And so he can see the test that I'm performing. And that's another extra functionality. But what I wanted to get to was the tests that you would do on site. Let's say there is a specific test that needs to be done. Well, you can create things called like different profiles for an auto test. And the auto test is really just, it's an app, it's a NetAlly app, and you set up different profiles for different tests. So I can set up a Wi-Fi profile to connect to specific SSIDs, for example. So if you're broadcasting more than one SSID, you can set up a profile per SSID and have the Etherscope just automatically pick which BSSID to test. And within that Wi-Fi profile, you can configure things like a channel test and set up different thresholds for 802.11 utilization and also non-802.11 utilization. You can set a threshold to your level, whether that's a warning or a failure percentage. So let's say it detects 35% channel utilization on whatever channel it's connected, then it would warn you that it has reached that threshold. There's other tests you can look at, like DHCP, DNS. You can have it do all sorts of tests. You can even drill down to maybe you don't want it automatically connecting to any AP. You can have it connect specifically to a BSSID, so you can configure that as well. Or let's say you don't care about 2.4, you can say don't connect to 2.4, connect on 5 gigahertz instead. So you can actually just tell it that. And so there's a lot of different tests you could do there.
Can you because I've seen application or devices that would do the same type of thing, more geared towards like service providers, and they actually have also the ability to set the number of spatial streams that you would use to try to simulate different type of clients. Do you know if they have this in here?
I don't think you can set a spatial stream. I believe the radio on the Etherscope is a 2x2 by 2, so 2 spatial stream, I believe.
Okay.
But I will tell you that the Etherscope has 2 Wi-Fi adapters, because one is used just for management, right? You want to be able to upload your results to Link Live, and how you're remoted into the Etherscope, Francois, is through the Wi-Fi management adapter. All the tests are done on a test adapter. So that adapter is just, the second Wi-Fi adapter is just used for all these different tests that you will perform over Wi-Fi. So
that's a big plus compared to the AirCheck, right?
Yeah. So the Wi-Fi adapter will not, the management one will not do any tests over that adapter, and it's a much I think it's just a 1x1 adapter. So it's just to provide that connectivity for management. So once you set up your Wi-Fi profiles, you can set it up sequentially. So if there's a specific sequence of steps that you want done, you can do that. Set up all your Wi-Fi profiles. There's another profile called Air Quality Profile, and again, that'll look at channel or 802.11 utilization across all the channels that you have enabled for scanning. So you can set on the AirCheck what channels to scan. It'll look at co-channel interference, so you can have it whatever your requirements are. Maybe you want it to warn you if there's 4 APs on the same channel, and fail if there's 8 APs on the channel, and set whatever that signal level should be for co-channel interference. So that's kind of the air quality profile. And I just for fun, I added another test where it just connects to a very specific BSS ID. So part of that too could be with troubleshooting, where you could be in an area where all these different clients are having issues. Maybe you've noticed that they connect to a specific BSS ID, so you could run an auto test to that. You can add as many profiles as you want. You can add a wired profile as well. So if you've got it connected via Ethernet or fiber, you can run all those tests at the same time, right? So I think like the auto test is a pretty powerful feature, especially for field engineers, where they don't have to set it up, right then and there, or maybe they don't have a list that they have to keep with them every single time. Just having that auto test profile set up, you can just tap start, and then that's it. It runs. What's really cool too is you've got this periodic auto test where you can tell it, I want to run this auto test at an interval, and you can be granular, or you can set an interval of like 1 minute, 5 minute, or even a custom value. So you can have it say every 5 minutes, I want to run this auto test, and I want this auto test to run for an hour, for example. And then it would upload that to Link Live as well. So everything you do here, you could upload to Link Live. And so once you hit start on this auto test, it'll run through everything. It takes a few, like a minute or so to run through about 4 profiles that I have set up here, where it connects to one SSID, then to a second SSID, then it does an air quality test, and then it connects to a specific BSS ID. So from there, even if somebody wanted to look at the details, you can look at what the test results are and maybe troubleshoot even further.
Could you use these tests to do, like, let's say, like a roaming analysis, or it's not really?
So that's where I think the AirCheck G2 is a lot better with roaming analysis, because there is, if I remember, there was a button that you would press for roaming, right? I don't know if you might be able to clarify that for me, Francois, but there on the AirCheck G2, there is once you connect to an SSID, there is a roaming analysis button, and then it will even capture the make a connect log showing you how the AirCheck is scanning for other APs and then making that connection and the roam. It even gives you details of how many packets were dropped during the roam, kind of gives you that analysis. And you can see the signal strength of the connected AP over time and see it dip and then raise as it connects to another. I think that's where the Etherscope's kind of lacking as far as roaming. So if I were to go to the Wi-Fi app, from the Wi-Fi app, I would be able to select an SSID and then connect to it. Oh, I still have my I got to cancel my periodic test.
Yeah. Well, I guess, for the roaming analysis, I guess it's more accurate to do it with the device that your customer has.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I would say so. I guess to me, using these handheld tools for roaming analysis just helps you confirm that roaming is working, and you can see if there are any issues with the roam. But if you wanted to get an idea of the client itself and its behavior for roaming, then you would have to use that client, and maybe you could use the NetAlly device to do your frame captures as it roams.
Yeah. Yes.
So like I connected to an SSID, but I don't have the same option as the AirCheck to do a roaming test. I just don't.
Are you a
see
big
that.
fan of Elon Musk? Because I see your SSID name is Frame Thrower.
It did come from his
the Boring Company.
Yeah, the Boring Company, that flame
thrower.
So named mine Frame Thrower. But yeah, so the SSID I have is Frame Thrower, and that's the one I connect to for all my tests. But I don't have a roaming option. So I mean, I have a connect log, but I don't see that I can test roaming. So I think that's where the Etherscope would be really good to add roaming, just so you could test it.
You have roam scans. Did you see that?
Yeah,
so
there is a roam scan, and I haven't really tested that feature to see what that means. And I don't know if that
probably means like you can detect at which point the device starts to send probe requests to find another AP to roam to.
Yeah, I was thinking it's either that or it detected that a client roamed to the BSSID. I don't know.
Oh yeah, maybe.
But I should really try that to see, because is it actively scanning right now? It looks like it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So once you connect, it stays connected. I guess then I could walk around, but I can't really tell if I'm roaming. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's just a little.
You get a lot of data though.
Yeah, this is the RF and traffic statistics, and this is where I spend a lot of time actually when I would use this device for troubleshooting, because what I would do is go to the area where people say they have problems, and then I would connect to the SSID and do a scan and see what the signal strengths are. Of course, you got to do an offset because the Etherscope is still stronger than most devices with the radios, but it gives you good detail, like average signal strength, for example, and average utilization. My favorite is the average retry rate, because that's where I tried to determine the quality of the channel, right? So I want to see what the retries are in that environment and whether or not there is another problem. And so average is you can just kind of have this sit there for, I don't know, however long you want it to, but you would be able to develop an average retry rate.
And could you see that per client? I believe you can, right? You could have like the list of the clients that are connected on that specific channel and then try to study how they're doing.
Yeah, there's different ways to look at this, and I think that's where a lot of taps happen. So I was looking at just connecting to the SSID, so then you see stats for that SSID. But if you wanted to say, which I haven't used a lot, there's a discovery app, so I can look at
the clients. I see them,
Yeah, so I have different clients here. What's the best one? Let me use this Apple device. So it doesn't really tell me the retries when I look at it. It's just a discovery, but you can do different tests on it. You can SSH to it, try to SSH to it, do maybe a capture or even a port scan. So you can get a lot done through the Etherscope. But I don't remember seeing an analysis of per client, but maybe under here clients. Yeah, so there's RF and traffic and statistics of that client.
Yeah, so, which is nice, because I think that's where, like when I do troubleshooting, like let's say I want to troubleshoot a specific issue and the customer tells me, in this area we're having a lot of issue with this type of devices.
Right.
I actually like to, use some sort of tool that will analyze the the stats for my clients. So usually I use an application called Debuki on macOS, which allows me to, drill down, discover the different clients on a given channel, and then it will just listen on all the frames exchanged by that clients, and then try to figure out, the maximum transmit rate, the retry rate, and then I will look at these stats as I do my testing, and then I could see if something is wrong, right? I could see if I have a lot of retries and try to understand what's going on. I could see if I have like asymmetric, data rates for that client and stuff like that. So I think it's very useful for very specific troubleshooting sessions.
Yeah, I think that even that level of troubleshooting is really some deep analysis, right? And I think if you're trying to do like that kind of level of analysis, I'm not sure if like Etherscope would be good for just kind of cursory checks, I think. And because you can get lost in looking at all of these details, right? Because you're moving around to different windows. You want to be sure you're looking at the right thing. So I just did a scan of my other SSID where I have more devices connected. So if I were to look at like my Samsung TV and say, maybe I want to look at that level of detail, I can see the Samsung TV. I can see what channel it's connected to, signal strength, and it says there is a problem. So like, what is that problem? So it's saying the frame retries exceed 40%. And so it's kind of nice that it kind of gives you that detail. So maybe that's that level of troubleshooting that you're trying to do, but it looks like the Etherscope is trying to go a step further and just trying to tell you what that is. And so then you could look at the RF and traffic statistics of that client, right? And so maybe I want to confirm the retry rates are high. And I can see that on average, it's about, it looks like it's hovering around 20%
right now. Yeah, that view is nice. I would use that view definitely.
Yeah, so then you could go, all right, it looks like this isn't maybe a widespread issue. This is a device issue. So then you could do a scan. So you have to connect to the SSID first, right? Because the Etherscope has to detect those clients also connected to the SSID. And so then I could pick a device. We can use my Apple TV because my son is watching right now on Apple TV.
You want to mess with him? Reboot.
But I think I have that as a wired. That should be set wired on a wired connection because you can tell the traffic is pretty low over wireless. I'm just trying to find a device that's used, which there isn't many right now. It's actually early on in the morning here. Like my Elgato key light. What does that?
You have the light on?
I can turn it on. Right now it's just really low data, right? So, but again, the point is like the level of detail that you can get, you can kind of get to that point, right, Francois? Like you were using a different tool here as maybe somebody who is not as in depth. You could use the remote tool and go, all right, let me help you and do the scans for them, and then go, all right, people can't print over wireless. Is it the printer that's having issues? Maybe the driver sucks on that thing, and you can kind of determine, all right, yeah, retry rates are really bad there on that printer. So it doesn't get to that much level of detail, but you can then say on this device, that this client that I'm looking at, click on, you tap on this wrench icon, you could do a capture over Wi-Fi, and I believe that'll filter it down to just that MAC address. So you could do that and then upload it to Link Live. So once that's uploaded to Link Live, somebody else can download it and look at that packet capture. So I think that's really a really neat feature of the NetAlly handheld products, specifically the Etherscope.
That's a nice feature, especially. Well, I don't know how they're going to handle the packet capture. I'm guessing they would capture on the channel that the
device is on. So down at the SSID level, if you just I guess tap on a channel, you could on that channel then just do a capture. You can change the settings of the capture, so you can limit the file size of the capture. So by the time it reaches that file size, it'll end the capture and upload it to Link Live. You could change the slice size. So if you don't need the payload, you can you can get rid of that and just maybe you're just interested in the headers. But you can capture the full packet if you want to. And then you can set a capture port. So not only can you capture on Wi-Fi, but you can capture on the wired side as well, right? So I don't think you can do both at the same time. You can only do one or the other. And then the one thing when you're capturing is you want to be sure you're capturing on the right channel width. So usually it's going to use whatever settings you had used previously. So I think that's one thing that could be improved with the Etherscope frame capture. Because let's see here, because I just picked a channel and it was picking 20 megahertz by default. But if I connect to an SSID and I know it's an 80 megahertz wide channel, if you were then to tap on the wrench and do a capture, it should automatically change to a 80 megahertz wide channel.
But do they have the ability to do that?
Let's see.
Does the NIC, you know what I mean? Like hardware speaking?
I think this one is 80 megahertz capable. But this is where another thing is, like, I connected to the SSID, but I can't capture from here. So I have to leave this window, go somewhere else. And this is what I mean by getting lost in this in some of the windows. So the easiest way then would be looking at maybe the BSSID views, or just channel. If you know,
they also have a capture. If you go back to the homepage, I think they have a capture icon as well.
Yeah, there's a specific just capture app. So here you would have to specify what channel you want to connect to. So this is what I mean by it uses the whatever your previous settings were. So then you would have to make sure to change the channel width to whatever the channel width was. And then you could do some filters if you wanted to, although I don't recommend doing filters. I think that's probably the same for you too, right, Francois? You want to filter it on the Wireshark side. You want to capture everything and then filter it later. But you can specify whether you want to capture a certain frame type, right? Maybe you don't care about the beacons. I don't want to capture any of those on this capture. You can disable that, or the same with management frames, data frames, and control frames. So there's still a lot of features you could, or a lot of functions you could change and modify. But once you start it, it just captures it, and you could see how many types of what kind of frame you're collecting, right? So you can easily see that maybe all of it is management frame and there's barely any data frames, or maybe there's more control frames, and it tells you how much is captured.
Real time.
Yeah, in real time. And then you could zoom in and there's a slider to see maybe you want to zoom into a specific time frame, or maybe you just want to see everything. And it kind of gives you this visual graph of what type of frame, how much and what type of frame is being collected. And then whatever your capture size was, it shows on the bottom, and whether or not it's almost there, right? So depending on how much traffic is happening on that channel, you could fill that up quickly, right? So I'll stop it, and then it's going to prompt me to save the capture. You can create a comment, and there's a little button there for save to Link Live. So obviously if you've got a large file, it's going to take a while to upload that. And then Link Live has to process it itself. And then, for example, Francois, you would be able to download it now from Link Live.
Link Live. Yeah.
So we're both in the same organization we created an organization called CTS, and we're both in there. I see his AirCheck, he sees my Etherscope. So whatever Francois uploads, I can see the results as well. So it's really great for that level of collaboration, right? So if you've got someone that's at a different site and your CW&E engineers at a different site, they can still work together at the same time without having to wait for someone to come back to the main office and then look at the files, or maybe the guy's done and he has to head to the airport real quick. As long as he stays connected to Wi-Fi, he can upload that data.
And then you can share that data from the Link Live website. You have everything available on the website. So you could give access, like read-only access to someone else. And they could come in and see all the data, even though they don't have any, NetAlly tool with them. They could still connect to the website and then view whichever, test whichever data you've collected. So if you want to have a look at it, they can do that.
Yeah, I think that's
directly on the website.
That's such a good feature, right? Especially if maybe there is a group of people who are using these tools and they don't understand the Wi-Fi portion. They could bring in a Wi-Fi expert to just look at the data and then give them the feedback. Or maybe you want to present the data to the client and go over it. You can do that as well. And they don't have to buy into a product to use Link Live. So I think that's a really nice feature, especially when you look at things like Airmapper, right? Because Airmapper is now is the new app from NetAlly, which allows you to do a validation survey. And so Airmapper, what you do is you have to upload a floor plan, and the floor plan could be an image. And what's neat is the Etherscope has an SD card, so you can just transfer the images to the SD card. And then when you set up your survey, you can set up however many floor levels are going to be in that building, and then you just select the file, the image. You have to set the dimensions because you want the accuracy of that survey to be as accurate as possible. You have to set up something called a signal propagation, and this again is more of the has to do with the accuracy level between the data points. And this is better to do visually, because I find that signal propagation could be confusing to people, because when you use the Airmapper to tap and do the survey, you'll just see like this nice round perfect circle. But there's a specific way you're supposed to tap. And so when using Airmapper, it's a pretty basic, easy to use validation app, right? So you're using the Etherscope, which again is handy because I've done my troubleshooting with it. Now I'm going to do a validation survey, and I've set the dimensions. So all you have to do is tap start, and then wherever you are in the floor plan, you tap, you wait for the circle to turn green, and then you could walk to the next location. And preferably, I think, right to the outside of the perimeter of that circle that it creates, which should be whatever the signal propagation that I set. So I do know for a fact that when I'm tapping on this, that is about 10 feet, just because I'm looking at a floor plan that I've already done a validation survey for. So you keep doing that. It's a stop and go pretty much. I'm stopping, I tap, wait for it to turn green, and then I keep walking. And so
how long does it take for the circle to turn green?
It's really quick. I mean, the moment I tap on it, it'll turn red and then green. And so it's collected its data. And so then I just hit stop, and then I could upload that to Link Live. And so now I'm just going to add a comment for Francois so he can look at it, because Airmapper is available to the AirCheck G2, but I don't know if it's still in beta for the AirCheck G2. I know with Etherscope, it already had it, but it's a pretty, intuitive way to do a validation survey, especially for someone who's not maybe a Wi-Fi expert, but they do want to do some level of validation. So I would say the disadvantage of this stop and go survey, as I zoom out of my floor plan is in a very large floor plan. It's going to take a long time to do a stop and go every single time. So I think hopefully NetAlly can add a continuous survey where you can do less taps. But for now, I think it's great for like office, maybe smaller warehouses, places where you need to do some quick validation survey testing. And then you could look at the results on Link Live. You don't get like really deep analysis, but you get things that are important to people, right? So you can look at signal strength, noise. What else can you look at? I would have to open
SNR.
Yeah, SNR, and it depends on what kind of support you have with NetAlly, because then they enable some other heat maps for you to look at. But you can also look at co-channel interference, and so you get this view, a heat map view. You can see the path that you've taken. You can actually hover over a section, and it'll tell you the value based on whatever heat map you're looking at. So if I'm looking at signal strength, it's got a color legend telling me, oh, I detected the signal at -20 dBm. You could actually click on that map, and at the closest data point that it's collected, it'll give you some other details on the right side of the page. So I think even this feature is a really good addition to the NetAlly tools, because a lot of us have been using USB dongles connected to laptops, and then who knows how long your battery is going to last. And then it's just one less piece of equipment you got to carry, right? So if I were to compare this to using like Ekahau, for example, I have to have, I use my iPad, and then I have to have a Sidekick. And so then I have a USB cable that goes from the Sidekick to the iPad, and then I'm using the iPad to do the taps. Whereas here, if I use a NetAlly EtherScope, I'm just using one device. The screen is smaller, so I just got to zoom in a little bit and tap there. But again, just one device. And since it has a USB-C port, I can, if I needed more battery, I could attach a battery pack to it.
Yeah, what I'm really liking here is the Link Live and the ability to just see the results right there in Link Live, and then, like I said, you can share it with some other people. Like you could share that with your customer, right? And they could just see your results. They could see your results as soon as you're done, even.
Yeah.
Right?
The moment you've uploaded it, and as long as it's uploaded it, the whole file, then they could see the results quickly. You can take a look and go, all right, that signal strength looks good. Create your offset, whatever you need to. So that's the other thing. Like we got to remember to do the offset with the device, because when I was using the EtherScope in a warehouse with a scanner. I believe there was it's like a 10 dB difference, just from what I was using.
Yeah, not surprising. Yeah.
So I mean, that's just.
I see. Like one scenario I could see here. Let's say you're working with a customer, and then they send you at some remote site to do some analysis, and then you do a survey, and then you realize that there's like a weird SSID being broadcasted in the environment. You could just call your contact and be like, hey, can you check it out for me? And then you both go to Link Live, and you say, near the the top of the floor plan, do you see this SSID called frame thrower? Is it something you recognize, or is it something I should investigate more?
Yeah. And
then you can get like quick answers.
Yeah, exactly. And here's an exact scenario that I've used it with, doing the survey, and there's a section where connectivity is weird, right? Like maybe the scanners just drop all of a sudden, or they connect, but there's something wrong with that AP. So if you want to look for that BSSID, you could use the EtherScope and its external antenna to locate that BSSID, right? And it gives you those pings. The warmer you get, the closer you get to it, the pings start, increasing in its intervals. And the same with the AirCheck G2. Like I've used that feature many times to locate a device that I was looking for. And I've done it with also troubleshooting deauthentication attacks, where I was able to map the BSSID or the MAC address of the frame that I see there, the source, and mapped it to an SSID that was being broadcasted by the same BSSID, and used the antenna to locate that, and found it was some neighboring AP that had, security turned on and is trying to de-auth everybody. So it's really neat to be able to use a single device for all of that, right? And I think that's kind of the benefit with the Etherscope or the AirCheck. Of course, Etherscope just has a little bit more functionality. It's Android based. It does wired testing as well. So that's the other thing I need to start playing with is, what does it look like doing tests wired? What kind of results do you get? Because maybe the problem isn't Wi-Fi. Maybe you've determined RF is good, Wi-Fi configuration is good, but why do I still have some bad connectivity? Maybe it's a bad cable. You could test the cable. Or maybe based on the auto test, you've determined, there's something wrong with DNS or DHCP. Let me see if I see that same issue on the wired side. So you can plug into the wired side of things, run your same auto test, and get those results as well.
It's actually how I got introduced to Link Live at the very beginning. A few years back, I started with a tool called the Link Sprinter, which is like a very small tool that just pretty much allows you to test a cable. Before let's say you were to install an AP, before you connect the AP to the cable that got run for the AP, you just connect the Link Sprinter, you do a quick test, and then it's going to upload the result of that. It doesn't, the tool doesn't even have a screen, but it uploads the results to the Link Live, so you can check out Link Live and make sure that everything is working properly. And then with the AirCheck G2, I love that function. Like AirCheck G2 has a little Ethernet port on the side, so you can test cable the exact same way. And I use that even in my house, in my lab, whenever I want to say, okay, how did I configure this port again, which VLAN or whatever, rather than going back to my management console, I just connect it to the G2 and test it, and in 10 seconds I have the answer. And then, like you said, on top of just testing the cables, the PoE, and the VLAN, it also tries to retrieve an IP address from the DHCP and then do a test to DNS test and go online, and it will tell you, if it works or if it doesn't work. So you can kind of figure out if the port is properly connected, the port has connection to the internet in a very quick way.
Yeah, one way to get down to any root issues quickly, and you brought up a good point, even with their wired handheld tools. So they do have like the advanced version of the Link Sprinter, which I think is the Link Runner, which it does have a screen and it does a lot more tests, right? So it can tell you even using CDP or LLDP, what switch it's connected to, what switch port, what VLANs it sees, and all that. It can test all that. And so maybe there is a problem where the AP connected, there's, one of the SSIDs isn't working. I'm not getting DHCP for whatever reason. So if you do your test on the wired side, you should be able to see, here's what's wrong with it, and then be able to send that result to somebody, right? To be able to share that in Link Live, or share that screenshot, because you can take screenshots with these devices as well and upload that to Link Live, and someone can see exactly what you're seeing.
Yeah. And then go back to the example where you are using the tool to locate devices. I do that whenever I have to support a conference. I will, when you have conferences, you always try to find the rogue APs and to ask people to disable their personal Wi-Fi device so they don't interfere with the conference Wi-Fi. And so usually what we do is we give, the AirCheck with the little antenna, and then we, from the management system that we use for the Wi-Fi, we have a rough idea of where, the rogue is, looking at the NMS, and then we give that information to someone that would go on the floor and then try to hunt the
offending device,
the rogue AP. I remember it reminded me of remember when we went to Cisco Live a couple of years back, and then we saw a guy with his laptop and Wi-Fi Explorer trying to find
Yeah, he was trying to find the I guess a MiFi, right? But did he have an antenna, or was he just using the built-in on the laptop?
The directional antenna that can
Okay.
help you to, go into the right direction.
Yeah, I remember that and then we stopped him and asked him what he was doing because we were curious.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do want to correct myself on the Wi-Fi adapter capability of the Etherscope. It's actually
It's a 3.
It's a 4x4.
4x4. Wow. And so you said they have 2 of them, right?
Yeah, one is for management and one is for the testing.
Mm-hmm. Do you know that if you do when you do packet capture, would you be able to leverage both of them to capture on 2 channels?
No, the management one strictly is just for like uploading results to Link Live, remote capability. It won't do any tests.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean there's so much more to it. I mean, we didn't even talk about the iPerf capability. If you've got like a test accessory and you wanted to just test do an iPerf test over wireless and maybe just straight to whatever switch it's plugged into, then you could do that with the Etherscope. It'll detect your test accessory and then you can tap on it and do your tests. And because a lot of people do speed tests, right? And maybe they've selected a speed test server that isn't performing very well, and then they kind of explain like, oh, Wi-Fi sucks because I'm not getting my 200 megabits per second. And then maybe if you use iPerf, you kind of eliminate a lot of those extra factors like internet and other routers and switches. Maybe you just want to test that connectivity over the Wi-Fi and then straight to whatever switch port it's connected without going through any other upstream devices. Then you could test that with iPerf and a test accessory.
And then you didn't talk about the Link Live API, which is exciting to me. Where you could use the Link Live API to retrieve your results as well, and then do whatever you want with it.
Yeah, I haven't even looked at the Link Live API. I didn't even know they had one.
yeah. If you Google Link Live API, you'll go and it will send you to their documentation. So they don't have I don't think you can do everything with it, but you can get the results, you can filter them. I'm guessing it's more like if you want to integrate your test, let's say you have a big company, different technicians on site doing different testing, you could integrate that with, your tools, maybe Slack or whatever, or maybe you have tools where whenever you do a test, you have to create like a certificate for your customers saying that the network is up and running, everything is good. So maybe you can use that to generate your certificate and automatically send them to your customers and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, that's something I'll have to take a look at and see. Maybe we could extend the functionality of Link Live and get something very specific. I think using it with Slack would be kind of neat in order to just get quick results and have it display whatever you're looking for, that exact value that you're looking for in Slack, or maybe create your own custom report based on whatever you can get out of Link Live, because you can create a report in Link Live, but honestly, I don't like I think they could do better with the reporting function. It's kind of just a basic, let me generate a report, and it's just showing exactly what you see. And I can't modify a lot of the different stuff it puts into the report. So that's where I would want to maybe get extra functionality and say, I have a template report that I always use. I just want to grab specific data and insert it into that report.
Wow. Well, you know what, with the Link Live and the API, I'm thinking that maybe, instead of creating a report that we usually do like on PDF document, maybe we could, in the future, try to see if we could even generate like an interactive, web page, HTML5 web page or whatever that would include the results of our data. So instead of sending a PDF document to our customers, we could send like a link, and then it will open up like some sort of web page where they could, see the report. That could be nice.
That would be nice. That would be pretty cool. You can even take it even further and maybe just create a web GUI just have somebody place the Etherscope somewhere, and then you can control what you want to do just by pressing certain buttons that do certain things. And that's just totally dependent on how extensive the API is for Link Live. Because I don't think you can probably push a command to an Etherscope. But
no, I think it's for now, it's not that extensive. Yeah, but I'm sure they're going to be looking at adding more to the API, because probably people will, more and more people use API for their internal use as well.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing customers will ask more and more functionality on that side of things.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I can see that being extended even further. I think that's pretty much all we really wanted to talk about. I mean, most of this you'd really have to look at this visually to understand how powerful this Etherscope and AirCheck G2 could be. I'm liking the Etherscope more and more. So I'm bringing it along with me, comparing it to how I traditionally do things over Wi-Fi, and then trying the same stuff with the Etherscope, because I have to look at how I can adjust my workflow using Link Live, for example. And then there's certain things that I want to get out of Link Live that I don't want everything, but I want some things, right? And so that could be maybe I like using a lot of screenshots and PCAPs, but what I would want to skip is trying to go into Link Live and grab every individual piece. Like maybe there's a way to just have that automatically dump into a shared folder for whatever reason, like maybe just for that project. Because right now I have to download each of those and then put it on my own file system, that kind of thing. So maybe that's where the Link Live API will come in handy.
You can, in Link Live, they allow you to create like CSV or, export some of the data in CSV or PDF. But like you said, I don't know how much customization you have to it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing to look at. But overall, I think, Etherscope I'm liking it more and more, especially for Wi-Fi. I'm able to do a lot of the troubleshooting I want to do. Like, let's say I only have time to just collect data. Like I can just run very quick tests, collect all the data I need. Like if I know exactly what I'm trying to do, I can collect all that data, have it uploaded, and then be able to analyze it wherever I go.
Awesome. So let us know how it goes. Maybe you can, include a couple of pictures.
Yeah, I have a couple of screenshots I've already uploaded to Link Live. You can probably see some of them. Like that's how I was sending screenshots. Like it saves the screenshots directly to the file system on the Etherscope, and then you can browse it like Android, right? It's Android, so you can browse the photos and then share it. So that's actually kind of cool, where I select the file, there's a share icon. So if you've got email set up or anything, you can just either upload it directly to Link Live or share it a different way. But that's pretty much all I had about NetAlly and my adventures with NetAlly.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, so if you guys want to get more, look at those pictures and all, the show note for this episode will be cleartosend.net/244. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm not making a mistake this week.
Yeah, we're getting lost with the numbers, but I believe that's it's episode.
If it's not, you'll end up on another episode. No, not a big deal.
Yeah. So if you guys have any questions about NetAlly, let us know. Hit us up on the show notes, or hit us up on Twitter. I am getting pretty familiar with NetAlly devices and testing it out and finding a lot of value in it. So if you think you might have the same feelings, then let me know, and I'm happy to answer any of your questions.
Awesome.
All right. Well, we want to thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye, guys.
Thank you, guys. Have a good week. Bye-bye.